Hey everyone, welcome to this intensive bilingual explainer. Look, if you're gunning for that elite CLB 9 or higher on the CELPIP exam, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to dive right into this because today we're undertaking a rapid-fire masterclass. We're going to map exactly 60 advanced terms directly to Canadian contexts and specific CELPIP tasks. And here's the rule for today: zero omissions. We are not skipping a single word from our source material. I'll pronounce every English term twice, give you the exact Chinese translation once, and immediately show you how to deploy it for maximum lexical resource points.
All right, here's our game plan for today. We're starting with describing trends and data. Then we move into history, heritage, and demographics. And finally, we'll tackle abstract concepts and philosophy. Let's get right into it.
Module 1. Describing trends and data. 描述趋势与数据.
Okay, this first module is basically your ultimate toolkit for writing Task 2 surveys and reading data charts. We're going to move fast here to build your rapid recall, so stay with me. First up, upward trend. Upward trend, 上升趋势. In writing Task 2, you absolutely want to use this to describe the Canadian real estate market. Next, downward trajectory. Downward trajectory, 下降轨迹. This one's perfect for discussing things like falling inflation rates in your essays. Then we have fluctuate. Fluctuate, 波动. Throw this in when you're analyzing fluctuating interest rates over time. Next, reach a peak. Reach a peak, 达到顶点. This is highly effective when you need to describe maximum seasonal employment levels during those busy Canadian summers. And finally for this batch, plateau. Plateau, 进入平台期. This brilliantly illustrates when a market finally stabilizes, a massive score booster for writing Task 2, for sure.
All right, keeping the momentum going. Plummet, plummet, 骤降. Think of describing extreme Canadian winter temperatures dropping or sudden market crashes. Surge, surge, 激增. This is highly relevant right now for discussing Canadian immigration rates. Next is marginal increase. Marginal increase, 微小幅度的增长. Perfect for noting, say, slight shifts in local transit ridership in a survey response. Then, sharp decline, 急剧下降. Use this bad boy when discussing sudden drops in fossil fuel usage for environmental prompts. And remain constant, 保持不变. An excellent phrase to describe stagnant wage growth across a decade. The whole point here is that these are the exact descriptors examiners are hunting for when you're comparing survey options.
Let's keep crushing it. Overwhelming majority. Overwhelming majority, 压倒性多数. Use this to analyze public opinion polls in writing Task 2. Significant portion. Significant portion, 很大一部分. This is super useful for describing specific demographic segments in reading charts. Next up, correlate with. Correlate with, 与相关. Use this powerful verb phrase to link things together, like connecting education levels to income brackets in your writing responses. Disproportionate. Disproportionate, 不成比例. A fantastic word to point out imbalances, maybe in local property tax burdens. And finally, threefold or fourfold. Threefold, fourfold, 三倍, 四倍. Precision numbers like these, they look incredibly natural to native examiners, I promise you.
Wrapping up the data section, exceed expectations. Exceed expectations. 超出预期. Great for describing surprisingly positive provincial budget reports. Noticeable drop. Noticeable drop. 明显的下降. Use this to highlight falling crime rates if you're writing a neighborhood funding proposal. Steady growth. Steady growth. 稳定增长. Perfect for describing the consistent expansion of the tech sector in cities like Waterloo. Next, plummet to a record low. Plummet to a record low. 跌至历史新低. Deploy this dramatic phrase when discussing historically bad crop yields out in the prairies. And last here, contrast sharply with. Contrast sharply with, 形成鲜明对比. Now, what's really cool about this term is that it's a phenomenal, high-scoring transition phrase when you need to untangle differing viewpoints in reading Part 4.
All right, Module 2, History, Heritage, and Demographics. 历史、遗产与人口.
So, let's shift our energy from raw numbers over to society and culture. These terms are literally the keys to unlocking complex reading passages and articulating culturally aware answers in your speaking tasks. First, historical artifact. Historical artifact, 历史文物. A really great fit for discussing museum preservation efforts in local communities. Ancestry. Ancestry, 祖先, 血统, absolutely essential when discussing the deep roots and diverse family trees of modern Canadians. Next, Cultural preservation. Cultural preservation. 文化保护. Use this when advocating for increased government funding for local arts and heritage sites. Demographic transition. Demographic transition. 人口转型. You will absolutely need this to neutrally discuss Canada's aging population. And generational shift. Generational shift. 世代更替. A perfect phrase to describe changing workplace norms, going from baby boomers to Gen Z in Speaking Task 6.
Moving on, indigenous heritage. Indigenous heritage. 原住民遗产. Vocabulary related to indigenous history frequently pops up in advanced reading modules, so make sure you master this one. Colonial past. Colonial past. 殖民历史. Knowing this term helps you neutrally navigate and really comprehend historical texts in Reading Part 4. Next, national identity. National identity. 国家认同. A super powerful concept when discussing what makes Canadian culture unique in Speaking Task 7. Immigration wave. Immigration wave. 移民浪潮. Essential for discussing the historical growth and expansion of major Canadian cities. Ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism. 民族中心主义. Spotting this advanced term will definitely help you understand the central arguments in higher-level social issue reading passages.
Next batch, cultural landscape. Cultural landscape. 文化景观. Use this to describe the blending of traditions and modern infrastructure in Canadian cities. Population density. Population density. 人口密度. A crucial term when comparing Canadian urban sprawl to rural living in Speaking Task 6 or 7. Life expectancy. Life expectancy. 预期寿命. Perfect for literally any topic revolving around the Canadian healthcare system. Next up, genealogical research. Genealogical research. 宗谱研究. This one actually pops up a lot in listening passages about people tracing their family origins. And multicultural fabric. Multicultural fabric. 多元文化结构. Just a beautiful way to describe the vibrant diversity of places like Toronto or Vancouver.
Finishing up our history module here. Commemorate. Commemorate. 纪念. Pair this directly with Canadian holidays like Remembrance Day. Oral history. Oral history. 口述历史. This term is key for understanding indigenous traditions that are often featured in complex reading passages. Settlement pattern. Settlement pattern. 聚落模式. Use this when discussing how new immigrants distribute themselves across different provinces. Next, cultural adaptation. Cultural adaptation. 文化适应. This is an absolute golden phrase for Speaking Task 7 when you're proposing newcomer integration strategies. And lastly, sovereignty. Sovereignty. 主权. An essential political term to recognize when you're reading about provincial versus federal government powers.
And here we are, Module 3, Abstract Concepts and Philosophy. 抽象概念与抉择. Okay, let's see how this module builds your score. This final section is the ultimate differentiator for CLB 9+. I mean it. If you want to impress the examiner in Speaking Task 7, you must be able to express complex, abstract opinions clearly. First, moral compass. Moral compass. 道德指南针. This is an excellent phrase to explain personal integrity when making difficult choices at a Canadian workplace. Ethical dilemma. Ethical dilemma. 伦理困境. And this term, it's your perfect tool for setting up those really tricky, ambiguous scenario responses in Speaking Task 6.
Check out this contrast. Subjective interpretation. Subjective interpretation. 主观解释. Bring this up when analyzing how different community groups might view a controversial new city bylaw. On the flip side, objective reality. Objective reality. 客观现实. Contrast it with this term to describe undeniable hard facts, like strict municipal budget constraints. Honestly, juxtaposing these two terms in a single sentence shows incredible lexical range and philosophical depth to the examiners. Here's another great pairing. Innate ability. Innate ability. 先天能力. Use this to describe natural talent when discussing educational pathways. Then we have acquired skill. Acquired skill. 后天技能. Contrast it with this term to emphasize the importance of hard work and training programs. I highly suggest using this specific contrast when you are prompted to discuss university funding or career training in your speaking responses. It sounds so professional.
Let's keep that rhythm going. Pragmatic approach. Pragmatic approach. 务实的方法. A great way to describe a realistic, boots-on-the-ground solution in public policy debates. Next, utopian vision. Utopian vision. 乌托邦. An amazing term for critiquing highly unrealistic or overly expensive city planning proposals in Speaking Task 7. Existential crisis. Existential crisis. 存在危机. a very high-level phrase to describe severe psychological stress or societal turning points in advanced reading texts. And altruistic motive. Altruistic motive. 利他动机. Definitely keep this one in your back pocket for any topics surrounding charity work or community volunteering contexts.
Almost at the finish line. Status quo. Status quo. 现状. Using the phrase challenging the status quo is wildly powerful for your opinion-based writing task 2 responses. Cognitive bias. Cognitive bias. 认知偏差. Use this to explain why people might make irrational financial or social decisions in task 7. Social construct. Social construct. 社会构建. A perfect term to demonstrate deep societal understanding when you're neutrally discussing shifting gender roles or changing workplace expectations.
Another powerful contrast here. Absolute. Absolute. 绝对. Use this to describe undeniable, fixed metrics, like a strict national poverty line. Relative. Relative. 相对. Contrast it with this term to explain how experiences change based on regional context. When asked to evaluate social issues, use these to contrast absolute metrics against relative ones. For instance, it's perfect when neutrally discussing the Canadian cost of living across different provinces.
Let's get a little philosophical. Determinism. Determinism. 决定论. Mention this when arguing that a person's socioeconomic background heavily dictates their future success. Free will. Free will. 自由意志. Contrast it with determinism to emphasize personal choice, agency, and responsibility. Anchoring your argument with these philosophical concepts can quite literally elevate a mundane discussion about career paths or societal outcomes into a highly sophisticated speaking response.
And our final 4 terms, materialism. Materialism, 唯物主义, an excellent term for speaking topics about extreme consumerism or environmental waste. Unintended consequences. Unintended consequences, 无意中的后果. Always bring this up when evaluating the hidden risks of proposed policy changes, like, say, a new carbon tax. Common good. Common good, 公共利益. A brilliant term for advocating for Canadian public resources like community centers or libraries. And finally, ephemeral nature. Ephemeral nature, 转瞬即逝的特性. A beautifully complex phrase to describe fast fashion or fleeting social media trends in writing task 2. Wow, and we made it! All 60 essential terms covered without skipping a single beat, complete with Canadian context and CELPIP strategies. Remember, structured application is the true, proven path to achieving that CLB 9+. So, here is my challenge to you today. Which 3 advanced terms from this explainer are you going to actively select and strategically deploy in your very next Speaking Task 7 practice? Seriously, pick them out, build your own sentences, and own this vocabulary. Keep practicing, stay focused, and I will see you in the next explainer.